Suddenly, someone touches it. I don't know if it will be possible for us to live the spirituality of the day together. This opportunity we have to create a space within ourselves. Create within ourselves an inner disposition for God's action. It's always good for us to think that our moon territory, it always needs cultivation. What is spirituality for Florence? We are a body. In this body, the spirit is, and there are needs different from the body and the mirror. We are very attentive to the needs of a lot. We are always paying attention. Hunger, thirst, heat, cold. We help the body all the time so that we can heal, look for better, that which hurts. In fact, we have wonderful mechanisms. The body, saying what is wrong with it, if we create the discipline of observing the body, right? The experience of being good in the body you have, in the body that I don't even like to say you have, which gives the impression that there's a part that's in us that controls everything, right? It's just a way of saying it. When I speak, I have a body. Deep down, I'm understanding that I am this body. It has an undeniable immaterial dimension. It's so easy to understand that. Sometimes we get complicated, right? What is there that is an undeniable immaterial dimension in us? It's simple if you have it. Is it a tumor? An abscess? If you have a blood problem. If you have a bone problem, a joint problem, we submit the body. Some exams, and we are increasingly more modern to identify this. We have MRIs, CT scans, the old X-ray, right, which continues to be valid today. Do you identify in the body? Why isn't it harmonious what is sick in it? The material body. So I am this bodily experience. But there is in me, there is in you of mensen that are spiritual. I like to say that everything that is spiritual, it encompasses everything that in we can't X-ray. We can't identify it in exams, but we can feel it. So if today you wanted proof that you're also immaterial, it's if I asked you if, at this moment, we wanted to find in you the love that you love. I know you are capable of loving many people. How many people in this life have you loved? How many people in this life do you love today? How many people will you still love? You are capable of, through these investigations, finding the love that we love and that we don't. Even so, yes, they did an MRI of the brain, which is the place where love is processed. Why? Although culturally we always talk about love as an attribute of the heart, this is only symbolic. This is cultural. It is in the brain that we love. So much so that when we break off a relationship that was very special to us, when we lose someone who suffers, the loss is the is. It is in the brain that we suffer longing. It is in the brain through the brain, right? For him, through him, with him. These propositions, which are naturally theological, are intertwined. It's in the brain that we feel discomfort. It's the brain that affects the body, of course. And why does the brain have such fascinating control over the body? That it's even capable of, through the suffering it's experiencing, through the pressure, right? That it's emotionally receiving. It's in the brain that we process emotions. It can even get sick, okay? When the suffering and the pain last for a long time. That's all. The channels teach us that even mourning is procedural. When we lose someone, naturally, we begin a process of organizing Lula. And sometimes, depending on how we are, we stay in that phase for a long time, which should have already been overcome. It's a time when we need help, when you realize that your pain, emotional, is spreading too far. Of course, everything will depend on what we lost, who we lost. There are people who are so great that sometimes it takes us a lifetime to organize, because we will have meanings as we are intense. It's the most beautiful way to pass through the life of another. It's leaving a great record. Miyakudo, who said, a dead loved one never stops dying, because every time he is remembered, a meaning within us, a reality that is beautiful and sad at the same time. Have respect for your longing. Sometimes you tend to interpret it as something negative. No, right? Is it a sign that you loved? A moment that you exercise yourself well? Sometimes we are attracted, and we have that temptation to think that the love we experienced wasn't worth it. Was it? Yes, it may be that at the moment if you are hurt and wounded, you may not realize the benefits of what you loved. But we are never the same after we have truly loved someone. We only get better. We get worse later. If we do not know how to organize disappointment, we can become bitter. It is people who, after a romantic disappointment, choose the bitterness of life. That's how it is. We are not perfect. We have this strange habit of choosing for ourselves what is not the best. It is part of our processes. They need to be healed. All this to say that there is an immaterial reality within us because it transcends the body. What comes from? So, you don't even need to believe in God to recognize the spiritual dimension of your life. Are you made of material things? The immaterial things. Does it behave? Embrace you. You take it with you wherever you go. And as I was saying, we are very attentive to the needs of the body. We can't stand being hungry for too long. Those who have the habit of physical activity, if they go 23 days without exercising, already feel bad. The body asks for it. The body is telling us if we sleep poorly. It's amazing how our body suffers. But what about the needs of the spirit? How do we deal with them? How do we listen to the messages? What do these needs send us? We have the ability to identify them. When there is, for example, a physical discomfort, when you identify it here, there is nothing wrong with the body. Do you do tests? Search. Conduct a thorough investigation, and suddenly, you realize that there is absolutely nothing wrong with your body, that what is being requested comes from somewhere else, that it is not difficult, it is not material. Is it spiritual? So interesting, my people, when do we begin to learn, to read, of spiritual needs? When you know exactly how to say to yourself, or even help other people what you are feeling, even though it is manifesting in your physical body, it is a spiritual need. You pay attention. You manage, or better, you develop. That we already have this ability. We just need to develop it. I believe, my anthropology is this. I believe that everything has already been given to us. After we do, we develop what already exists within us, what has already been given to us. Then I need to develop the ability to know what in me, is it spiritual? When is my spirit asking for nourishment? Which can sometimes manifest itself through sadness. This is what we call depression, right? What we commonly call depression. And we should even correct our language a little. That sadness is not depression. Is depression an illness? Depression is malaise. What does it need? To overcome, to care for, to take care of, to be careful with medication. I'm talking about sadness, common sadness, those that occur to us every day, those situations that we use to manage, that are inevitable, that are part of my life, that are part of your life, which are spiritual needs because they are immaterial. It is also very common in our times that every time we talk about spirituality, you've heard me talk about it many times, that we immediately think of religion, of the paths that religion offers us. Yes, religion is par excellence a place of spirituality, but it is also no guarantee that it will be. The fact is that life can be a spiritual experience, and you have to be attentive to identify that. What is hurting you today? What is there at the root? If you go there to look for the reason first, what do you find? A spiritual need. What are the spiritual needs? St. Paul distinguished well the life of the flesh from the life of the spirit, although it is his pedagogical, right? Because we experience everything together. For 1 hour, we will do a spirituality of the day to distinguish these fruits. It's just that today the gospel, I apologize to those who are not Catholic. I apologize to those who are not Christian. We know that the gospel, the words of Jesus are always very welcome anywhere, right? Jesus, for us Christians, our Savior. He saves us from ignorance. He saves us from a life without quality. And it's beautiful for us to think about this. How does Jesus save us? When he makes us think in a higher way. In fact, you can save people by making them think in a higher way. Sometimes you find a person immersed in hatred, in resentment, and you observe that and realize that hatred and resentment are removing that person's visa, and you go to talk to them. But why are you doing this to yourself? Holding hatred, holding resentment. Woman of S, don't you realize that this is hurting you? And that person Suddenly, from your words, it provokes within them a revolution, a new way of thinking. And what you said had a redemptive character. It saved, yes. How many times can we save a person? Moving toward a nobler, higher, more intelligent mindset. Why not say, holding grudges and resentments is not a smart stance. It only talks. It only does harm. It's an attitude that only harms. Then suddenly, when you go, talk to that person and show them that what they're doing to them is not fair. Are you saving? So the word of Jesus that saves us is Jesus all the time. He is my Savior. That sacrifice on the cross, once accomplished, encompasses my entire life. I am very, very afraid that we limit Jesus' action, the redemptive, salvific action of Jesus. There's an afterlife that we know that and owe. For the love of God, don't limit yourself. Don't limit Jesus' sacrifice, Jesus' life. Oh, you are not Christian who have an admiration for what Jesus lived, for what Jesus said. We Christians, I'm confessing here, we often have one. We have a very limited view of Jesus' sacrifice. Jesus will save me from hell. Jesus will take me to heaven. Is this civil language fine for a while? But it may not work for us today because it doesn't make sense to think that Jesus will save me from the hell that lies after this life. Or will he offer a heaven after this life? No. Being a Christian means being saved every day. From ignorance, from the snares of hatred, from lies, from infidelity. I said that all these realities, when we accept them, slowly kill us. And what if, moved by Jesus' advice, I stop harboring hatred within me, stop practicing injustice, stop being a liar, a deceiver, a person who steals? Someone who squanders what belongs to others, someone who speaks ill of others, someone who judges others. And Jesus has a series of practical advice that saves us daily. This is why, for some people, religion has no effect whatsoever, because it merely prepares them for eternity. And they never realize that the great richness of the gospel begins here, in this life we have. As Jesus enters my life, enters my story, his word enters my mind and transforms my mindset. I'm a man who's starting to benefit himself even more now. Did you talk to Marcelo? We talk about this every time we become better people, before benefiting others with our change. The ones who are truly benefiting are ourselves, because when we are a burden to ourselves, consequently, we are a burden to others. But are you being a burden to yourself? When I insist on my defects, on the same ones, when I stay here cultivating the worst of me, I become a burden to myself. And when I am a burden to myself, I lose quality of life. That's why we say it's so important to be attentive to the needs of the spirit, the soul, the mind. Call it madam, whatever you want. I like to speak spiritually, because when I speak spiritually in my head, I'm recruiting my concept of soul. I embody your soul, but this soul, this physical body has a place that has a brain that is capable of giving me 1,000 possibilities, infinite possibilities. So much so that we only use a percentage of it. What do we call the mind? Which is the power I have to control. The more evolved I am, the greater my control of the mind, the greater my ability to use the tales of the powers of the mind to people who move objects by the power of the mind. There are people who are able to self-heal. Can they have such impressive control over themselves that they are able to control their own pain? There are people more evolved than us. So we are talking about that. When I talk about my spiritual needs, I'm encompassing everything in my life that enables me to be a better man. How? Through my choices, through what I build, through what I leave behind. Yes, because sometimes we have a very positive vision. We think that building is only about bringing, assuming one, isn't it? Building also consists of letting go, of giving up on yourself honestly, looking at everything that is before you and saying, this concerns me. This is what, as wonderful as it is not for me. Why will it imprison me? It will demand too much, and this excessive demand will not be fair to what I am choosing to live. How many people choose to earn less like this? They choose to live better. So, spiritually, I am making my choices. And it is so wonderful, my people, when you begin to realize that faith in eternity inspires a care for life. Terry, it is not alienated. Our Christian faith cannot be alienated. If it's alienated, is not Christian. Why was Jesus not alienated? Jesus was not an alienated man. Yes, because when we speak of the divine manifestation, the incarnation of the Word in man, Jesus, we are talking about everything he lived, including humanly. Jesus was not an alienated religious man. He did not live his religiosity in an alienated way. On the contrary, he had a wonderful perception of sin. He had a generous perception of the fragility of others. He never used the fragility of others to shame, to embarrass them, or to feel better than someone, right? Jesus passed among us inspiring new life. He looked at that prostitute who was discredited by everyone, thrown there on that floor, in that humiliation, in that misery, and convinced that woman to leave that state of self, or even that state of condemnation that she was accepting, and whispered in her ear anew when you may have heard me say this today, I accept fewer conditions. Back when I was working a lot, every time I had the opportunity to sacramentally absolve someone's sins, I liked to imagine myself saying, go back to loving yourself. Yes, sin brings so much self-loathing. Can you see how our vicious cycles of mistakes drive out our self-love? How our failures, when not well lived, when not well interpreted, they transform one day into an obstacle. Our ability to take care of ourselves. How many times? Be able to recognize it for yourself. Sometimes we have difficulty recognizing for others, but also for ourselves. How many times have you been your body, your worst tormentor? How many times have you said, I despise you terribly? Did you do to yourself what you never liked others to do? Humiliated you without? Despises you without? What have you done? The worst treatments are not given to us by others. Is it ourselves? I am the person who despises myself the most. I am the person who believes in myself the least. And then I complain, you don't believe me? You don't give me a chance, but you believe in yourself? You give yourself the opportunity. We have an enormous facility to project outward what we are living internally. There are many and they despise. There is little love. There is no time to love oneself. So when do I need to pass? In the sieve, the choices I am making, will I bump into this all the time? In situations that often express my lack of love for others. But above all, for today's gospel, we came back here and I started talking. I was multiplying the conversation. It is a very well-known gospel. For us little Christians, it is a very simple story, but it teaches us a lot. It is a story we have heard many times, but it would be worth remembering. Jesus says it like this. The kingdom of heaven will be likened to 10 virgins who returned, who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. They went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. When they took their lamps, the foolish ones had not taken any oil. They only took the beautiful lamps. As for the wise ones, they had taken the oil in jars with the lamps. Of course, it ran out later. You replace it, and you have a full lamp and a reservoir. So you can continue your journey with this electric energy. Each one even used their own lamp, their own little lamp, right, like we had there, in the interior of Minas Gerais. How could the husband be late? The wife was late. They all felt sleepy and fell asleep. The man took a while. Everyone fell asleep and slept. So, in the middle of the journey, they were late. They left everything at the last minute. The bridegroom came to those who were there, and they went with him into the wedding hall, and the door was closed. Finally, the other virgins arrived in turn and said, Lord, open the door for us. But he answered, Truly I tell you, I do not know them. Keep watch. Why do you not know the day or the hour? This story may seem a little strange from a cultural point of view, because we don't have this story of a bridegroom for many brides. I just want you to pay attention to the fact. How can we place ourselves within this gospel? We have all been invited. There's a great reception at a party. But to get to this place of the party, we will need to wait for a guide. We do not know how to get there alone. The guide was late. Some of us prepared well for the trip with black minas. We prepare well. The Mineiros also accompanying us. They know very well how we prepare a trip. We start doing that part, Chicken Neck Farofa, but 3 days in advance. I remember when we came to Aparecida to do Norte on pilgrimage, my God, but our trip starts to be prepared a week in advance. But there's that group that doesn't care, is doing other things, isn't it time to go, and leaves only with the oil that is in that lamari, when, in fact, the road is long. They had to stop to wait for the guide, and when the guide arrived, they didn't have enough to continue the journey. At first, the gospel seems to make us think this, but wouldn't it be more generous for those who have a reserve to share some of the others? But Jesus already does. Immediately, Jacob frees us from this imposition of charity, which sometimes people impose charity on us like this, demanding the unjust. It wouldn't be fair to those who were prudent. Jesus has no fear and say, those who prepared for the trip, they had no obligation to pass on the contents of what they had, reserved, because passing it on to someone else, there would be a shortage for her. People, this is so revolutionary. This is so liberating. We are talking precisely about this here. How many times do we want to offer to another what is not our right to offer? How many times do we want to correct the other's imprudence, taking away our right to do what is right, that which we prepared ourselves for? Yes, because I could very well be generous, and then I was in the dark and couldn't get to the place. They had no obligation to pass on the contents of what they had reserved, because by passing it on to someone else, there would be nothing left for them. We are so revolutionary. This is so liberating. We are talking precisely about this here. How many times do we want to offer someone else what is not our right to offer? How many times do we want to correct someone else's imprudence, taking away our right to do what is right, what we have prepared for ourselves? Yes, because I could very well be generous and then be left in the dark and not be able to get to place. I can't anymore, because my guide was late. He was late. He didn't arrive on time, and I didn't go. I couldn't. I was stuck in the middle of the road with those who didn't prepare. It's interesting because one of the rules of good living is to be constantly prepared for what life will ask of you. And I know it's very easy in life for us to assume that we'll always be carried by others. I think you live with us like that. I think you've already had the experience of having to deal with that person who never does their part and always expects us to do it. It started like that back in school, when we had that work group where 2 or 3 were very dedicated and the rest just put their name on it. How many times are we enslaved like this? Sometimes, even to be liked. In many moments, this happened, and we can recognize it. In many moments, we carry our own beers because we want to have a little of their friendship. So doing the work with them was a form of us, an illusion, a nonsense. But how many times in our life we need living with those who didn't want to do the work of preparation? And somehow, and I know that religiously, we were often educated to understand that we need to do for others all the time. Yes, I think life is always an experience of giving. But there comes a time when you discover that you cannot give that which will not allow you to reach the best of yourself. There are things that I cannot share. Is it mine? I prepare myself for whom? There are things that you don't know, cannot, should never share, because it is the result that you worked hard for. I know that sometimes the culture of preparation, it is for the few. Me, I never did. I was scared by numbers in those who compete. For example, you're going to take a college entrance exam, and how many times did I hear that? There are 15,000 applicants for each position. Isn't that true? 90% of people aren't preparing. 90% of people limit themselves to an absurd exercise in mediocrity, a journey with only 10% of the oil to get to the other side. But when it's time to take the test, there's no point in trying to give your preparation to someone who hasn't prepared. That's what we're talking about. That's what Jesus said at that moment, because at first, it might seem like Jesus is teaching us to say it, something that even contradicts what he taught us, what he told us. There is no greater test than giving one's life for one's friend. Okay, but even in giving, there is a limit, because it's like trying to give medicine to a sick person who has already decided to die. Searches that will leave you in a state of great loneliness, that you can't include the other. It's that old story, marriage. It can only work when both parties fight. For him, there's no point in a woman carrying her husband's reserve of oil her entire life. There's no point in this personal journey, in love, between 2 people in a home, building a family, the first thing asked for is this: equity. Look, we're different. There will be times when you'll be stronger than me, but never stop bringing your reserve. So don't impose on me the responsibility of bringing the reserve that's yours to carry. That's what Jesus is talking about. Each of us needs to live our own preparation, because in this eternity, won't you arrive accompanied? It's not a funnel that narrows, 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 and at the end of it, only you will pass. I know that sometimes we have a terrible habit of crying out for help before we've helped ourselves. How many times? People, especially not in my case, right? As a priest, a religious leader that I am, because of this cultural construction that we are often also responsible for, we priests have the answer for everything we have, the solution for everyone because we don't have it. I can't even handle my own problems. How many times have I almost drowned in the face of my problems? I don't have that prepared attitude. I never have. I don't want to. I am someone who lives. I am human. I believe in God. But sometimes my faith in God doesn't hold me. It's not enough. Sometimes my human resources are scarce. Why? Because I'm projecting myself poorly. I'm not carrying the oil. I'm not carrying the reserve. I'm giving myself more than I can give. I'm offering myself far beyond my means. Yes, because God cannot remove us from the responsibility of our choices. What if I choose to leave the house with only the exact amount of oil, and not considering that something unexpected might suddenly happen, as happened? The husband was late. In our example, we are talking about the guide who would take us to the place. He was late. We needed to wait for him. We couldn't keep the candles unlit. He didn't know where we were lost in that darkness. What would signal that we were there waiting for him were the lit candles. It was the lit lamps. And even when we're not moving, the oil is consumed. Just because we're standing still doesn't mean it will consume less. I needed to keep my lamp lit so that in the darkness the guide could find me, my husband could find me. But he was late. We stopped the journey and waited there. And when he arrived, our oil wasn't enough to continue. How many times does the punch happen? In our family relationships, then my God, how does this happen? And then your brother who looks at you? It's as if you're to blame. As if you have to take responsibility for him, not being prudent and doing his daily search. How many times within our family circles do people oppress us because of this? First, because they look at us as responsible for everything that went wrong in their lives. Or if not, they look at us as responsible or as someone who will necessarily have to live with the consequences of the mistakes they made. I'm not saying that we don't have to be supportive. I'm not saying that the suffering of others doesn't impact us. Only that there comes a time when we need to take hold of this evangelical wisdom of differentiation, which is a fact that we learned when we began to mature. According to psychoanalysis, one of the moments that we differentiate the least, the other is the oral phase. Freud said that the attempt at a child has to incorporate the world through the mouth. Everything, the child dies. She screams. She is a well of Goyas. The child, we have this beautiful reading. It is not evangelical. The child is purity. No, a child is a well of selfishness. Then she even matures to get out of selfishness, but she doesn't even know how to wait for her mother to arrive. She screams, She doesn't want to know if her mother is hungry, if her mother needed to go to the bathroom. When she has her vital need, she becomes desperate because she is selfish, not selfish, in the way we can be. No, she doesn't even have responsibility for descending her Buddhism. It's part of the normative process. Is that normal? Is it normal for a child to be selfish, but not for an adult? So, sometimes in our family relationships, in our closest relationships, people interpret us immaturely, as if we were an extension of them, as if we could no longer differentiate. I am me, you are you. We made different choices, even though we had very similar opportunities or not. It may be that I had far fewer opportunities than my brother and chose the best. It may be that he had a lot of good opportunities and chose the worst part, chose to live in the worst version of himself. And I bear this responsibility. I need to assume the consequences of other people's mistakes. But, unfortunately, in many moments of religious discourse, this was imposed on us as an obligation. You have an obligation to carry others on your back, isn't it? The gospel proposes a mature relationship. With all this, okay, let's analyze. Why are you in this suffering? Because maybe at the time, to avoid it, you chose not to avoid it. Okay, but I'm still here. But with a difference. The suffering is yours. So there's no way to take it on. Because if not, I'll start dealing with what I no longer have. Or will I start drawing from my reserves? And will I harm? What I cannot under any circumstances. Harm and stop caring? What is my DIG? When we give our oil and we deprive ourselves of reaching out, we do the simplest math, perhaps the easiest path, common sense, which some people might even call selfishness, right? From Jesus' perspective, this is prudence. A simple example, we have a person we love very much, and they want to take us down paths that we know are not good. Come with me, be my companion. I don't want to go there alone. Not if you love me. Are you proposing that I go to a place that won't do you any good either? What kind of love is this? What kind of love is this? Then I think it's the opposite. Am I the one who should convince you not to go? For the love of us, for the love of our reality, for the love of our situation. If it's going to be bad for you, why do I have to? Wouldn't it be easier for me to convince you not to go? And that way, we don't hurt each other. Prudence. It's what Jesus recommended. A prudence that puts us in the position of building reserves. I need to have reserves of love. I need to have reserves of patience. It's easily exhausted. I need to have reserves of justice. Every opportunity that I could be fair. A simple example, we have someone we love very much, and they want to lead us down paths we know aren't good. Come with me, be my companion. I don't want to go there alone. Not if you love me. Are you proposing that I go to a place that won't do you any good either? What kind of love is this? Do you want more rents? Then I think it's the opposite. Am I the one who should convince you not to go? For love of us, for love of our reality, for love of our situation. If it's going to be bad for you, why do I have to go? Wouldn't it be easier for me to convince you not to go? And that way we don't hold back. Prudence. It's what Jesus recommended. A prudence that encourages us to build up. Reserves. I need to have reserves of love. I need to have reserves of patience, which is easily exhausted. I need to have reserves of justice. Every opportunity one have to be fair, I want to be. Because I know I'm applying justice right now. I'm building a reserve within myself. So that when I'm tempted to be unfair, that reserve will speak louder. My solidarity, for example, is scarce. I find it much easier to look at myself, at my needs. You are the same. So every opportunity we have to be supportive, so that solidarity doesn't hurt you. Prudence in giving what you can't give, in offering what you can't offer, in risking what you can't risk. So I will be supportive. It's because what Jesus is proposing in this gospel today is very challenging. He's saying, don't lose your salvation. Don't lose your salvation trying to save someone. Does it happen too much? What is lost takes us with it. So it's easier for the lost to make many others lost than for the saved. Rescue those who are lost. So don't give up. Don't negotiate what you know will bring condemnation into your life. We are very good friends. Let's use a little drug together here, just so you can see what it's like to understand my world a little. No, I won't give up. I won't give up what is already saved within me. I am a man without vices. Why would I dig an addiction into my life? The prudence that generates reservations. Of everything? Sometimes, my people, back to the beginning, almost over. It goes by fast, right? Sometimes. The search for salvation, the search for life, healthy, it will demand very difficult paths from us, reformulations, reinterpretation of the role of the other in our history. And when we don't do this, we get tired, because we don't know why. How many times have you identified this? You couldn't identify what hurt, but did you know you were going? And that pain was provoking in you? An inner enmity that isn't with or. No. You were feeling like your enemy. Were you feeling? Like what? Creating. With yourself? A terrible relationship. Sometimes people, depending on the degree to which this stays inside us, to the point where we want to take our own lives. I hope there aren't many, but I have the courage to ask these 22,000 people here on Instagram following us on YouTube. Do you have any idea? At some point in your life, have you ever thought about giving up? People who think death will be the best solution. I have. Why do we think this? Because we've exhausted our reserves. That even psychology teaches us about understanding suicide. We have our serotonin. We've exhausted our endorphins. We've exhausted all the chemicals of well-being. With our lifestyles, with our tiring routines, with our worn-out relationships, we don't realize that our vision is running out, and we don't have the wisdom to stop and to refuel before the chosen one arrives. Maybe I'm talking to you who are exhausted at this moment. Did you eat so many times? How many times was I emotionally exhausted? I needed to recognize what was happening to me. It was a natural fruit caused by unfortunate choices. Don't expect unfortunate choices to make you happy. Don't expect unfortunate choices to make me happy. Unhappy choices don't generate anything else in our non-disillusionment. Discomfort, that bad feeling of what? You're not living the right way, and yes. How many times has your exhaustion been caused because you took on your family, you took on your family's problems, and you didn't learn this evangelical beauty of differentiating yourself, not to feel better than anyone else. It's to distribute responsibilities in a fair and just way. I love my family, I love my brothers, but I'm not responsible for their problems. I can help, but I can't carry them forever. Sometimes that person is very fragile, and we go there with all our resources, but they need to react. That sometimes, and our help causes complacency. How many times, my people, inside our homes, are we exhausted because we can't bear to carry people on our backs anymore? We want a fair and just way. I love my family, I love my brothers, but I'm not responsible for their problems. I can help, but I can't carry them forever. Sometimes that person is very fragile, and we go there with all our resources, but they need to react. Sometimes our help leads to complacency. How many times, my people, inside our homes are we exhausted because we can't bear to carry people on our backs anymore? We want them to stop drinking. We want them to stop using drugs. We want them to leave that prostitution, the socialized prostitution that so destroys their lives. But they don't want to. They don't make the same choice. And we keep taking those failures as our own. And we will stay, and we will share our oil. Soon we won't have any more to continue the road. How many times are you exhausted, destroyed, emotionally? How many times? And you, who offer to so many, have no one to seek, and you discover. What terrible loneliness. But I don't complain. If you want and start alone, don't search. And stop giving what you don't have. I face people. Many solutions. Many situations will only be resolved through the experience of facing, which is a formalization of the problem, that sometimes we experience problems without formalizing them. We don't talk about them. We don't point them out. We don't put the truth on the table. We just run over them, and from time to time we scream. But screaming is not facing. Momentary screams, hysteria, fits of aggression are not confrontations. And when you put on your best clothes, invite the person who is a problem to come down for dinner. It could even be at your house. I don't know how calmly. Look them in the eyes. That's right. Let's share it here. What's mine? What's yours? Because I'm not obliged to take on your dissatisfaction. I'm not obliged to put up with your anger. If you are an unhappy person, make up your mind. I will not be the place, the receiver, in your unhappiness, because I'm here trying to be happy. And your unhappiness being thrown at me all the time is an obstacle to my happiness. I only have one life. I want to live well every day. So I want to tell you that from today on, I will no longer be the receptacle for your departure. Of your unhappiness, I am with you for whatever you need, as long as what you need is, in fact, an essential element for your change. I will not continue maintaining your unhappiness. I will not continue putting out your fires. I will not continue doing for you what you need to do, because I also have my own personal fires to put out. I will not keep paying your debts while you spend irresponsibly. I also have my own dreams to fulfill, and many times I have stepped on my dreams because you were irresponsible and judged your irresponsibility on me. I will not maintain what you are sick of. And I'm not going to pay the bill for your emotional immaturity because I have no obligation, even though we're blood relatives, even though we're still married, even though we're siblings. I don't have to keep paying for what you haven't paid for every day. Face it, and calmly, without yelling, but with authority. I know that in the minds of many of us, authority is yelling no. Authority and a firm voice are decisions. When the other person realizes that we're determined not to share our money anymore and get in the way, how does she feel? How does he feel? He tend to wake up, because often we maintain the unhealthy mechanisms. The other person just dances, but we're the ones playing the flute. Cruel. I know it's cruel. Do you think it's easy for me? How many times have I had to admit this? That for many people who say they love me, I'm nothing more than an ATM? I've gradually lost the guilt of saying no. There's no obligation. Life is yours. I didn't have it either. Opportunity, I look for them. Why can't you look for it? Aren't you sick? And if you're inventing illness to get rid of it, why is that also common? Some people invent illnesses so they can be eternally cared for, eternally helped during the process. Look, I'm on my way and my oil is running out. I'm here, but my oil won't last all the way. Please, for God's sake, I'm very sick. Help me. No, we're not. Shouldn't we? Under no circumstances do we have to maintain the laziness of others. We cannot, under any circumstances, assume this uncomfortable role of paying the bill for the immaturity of crimes. Gilberto Gil has a song I love. It's called Each Thing or Each Time in Its Place or Each Thing in Its Place. I think each time in its place. Since it starts like this, I need to curb my desire to help a little. Kindness can be an addiction. They haven't led to change anywhere that I know that sometimes we were created this way. To offer what we don't have, God doesn't ask that of us. Let's be supportive, be loving, but let's never lose sight that before we offer others, we can offer to ourselves. And that is not fair under no circumstances. We have more. Search for your reserves. Intensify your spiritual life so you can continue to have joy of being who you are. And when the other really needs your help, you have conditions to help, but without feeling, here to help. Did you need it? Giving what you have most will come out. May God bless us always more in this purpose. He who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Thank you for your company. It was a great pleasure. Once again, He is with you.